From Washington, this is VOA News. I'm Ira Melman reporting the latest Supreme Court nominee again faces congressional scrutiny. U.S. Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch faces at least one more day of direct questioning by a Senate panel Wednesday before members vote on whether to recommend his nomination to the full Senate. More from VOA congressional correspondent Michael Bowman.
Gorsuch praised former President Barack Obama's pick for the same seat, Judge Merrick Garland, but declined to comment when asked if he agreed with Republicans' refusal to consider his nomination.
I can't get involved in politics.
Again and again, Gorsuch refused to be pinned down on thorny topics that might come before the Supreme Court, including when Democrat Dianne Feinstein asked whether courts should decide the extent of Americans' right to bear arms.
Can you do yes or no?
No, I wish I could.
I wish you could, too.
Gorsuch will face at least one more day of direct questioning in committee. Later, the panel will vote on whether to recommend his nomination to the full Senate, where Republicans hold a slim two-seat majority. Michael Bowman, VOA News, the Capitol.
Time for talk running out. President Donald Trump on Tuesday had that warning to wavering House Republicans that their jobs were on the line in next year's elections if they failed to back a GOP bill that would upend Barack Obama's Affordable Care Act. The countdown quickened toward an expected vote Thursday on legislation undoing much of the law that has provided coverage to some 20 million Americans. Trump huddled behind closed doors with rank-and-file Republicans just hours after GOP leaders unveiled changes intended to pick up votes. This is VOA News. Britain has joined the United States in banning passengers from carrying laptops and other large electronic devices on flights into their respective countries from airports in the Middle East. The British directive, announced Tuesday, will block carry-on electronics larger than 16 centimeters in length, 9.3 centimeters in width, and with a depth of over 1.5 centimeters on direct flights from Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, Tunisia, and Saudi Arabia. The directive requires passengers to store electronic devices larger than a cell phone in checked baggage. The TSA here in the United States said it chose not to include cell phones due to logistical reasons. The TSA said it chose the airports based on the current threat picture and after consultation with intelligence officials, though more airports could be added in the future, they said. Terrorism analyst Greg Barton of Australia's Deakin University told VOA the action seems to be linked to past and present threats.
Presumably also linked to Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula and its series of attempts for attacks, including the Richard Reid shoe bomber attack, the 2009 flight into Detroit in which a young Nigerian, Umar Farouk Abdul Muttalib, had a device packed around his upper thigh, a so-called underwear bomb.
Barton told VOA, presumably the intelligence that triggered all of this is linked to the AQAP in Yemen, and it may have come out of that rather disastrous raid that killed a U.S. soldier, but nevertheless was said to have yielded some valuable intelligence. The International Red Cross is appealing for $400 million to help millions of people facing famine, or the risk of it in 4 conflict-ridden countries: Somalia, Yemen, South Sudan, and Nigeria. The Geneva-based humanitarian agency said Wednesday it wants a massive scale-up in assistance and hopes to provide essential aid to about 5 million people. The operations director, Dominic Stillhart, said 20 million people are facing starvation. It is not something we are dealing with. It is not something we're dealing with every day. Stillhart urged those involved in fighting to abide by the norms of warfare and said no amount of aid money will overcome political obstructionism. Syrian activists say that dozens of people were killed or missing after an airstrike the day before leveled a school near the Islamic State-held city of Raqqa, where displaced families had sought refuge. The activist-run Raqqa is being slaughtered silently, said some 50 families had been sheltering at the school in the northern Syrian village of Mansoura, and that their fate was still unknown. More on our webpage at voanews.com. I'm Ira Melman.
That's the latest world news from VOA.